I visit a lot of websites, and a lot of those websites require a password. I believe in strong, different passwords for every site that I go to. There's no way I could remember all those, so I use a password manager. I've been using LastPass for quite a while now, but I want to give Bitwarden a try. Home Assistant has a Bitwarden add-on, and I'm going to go through that today and set that up, and I'll show you how I do it. Let's get to the computer. All right, so we're going to do a couple things to get started here, and that's going to involve installing both Bitwarden and Let's Encrypt if you haven't already done that. Bitwarden obviously is going to be our password vault, our password manager, and then Let's Encrypt is going to be our certificate manager that's going to allow us to use SSL for this. So I have the add-on store here, and I'm going to look for Bitwarden, and here it is. So we'll go ahead and install that. All right, so Bitwarden is installed, and for configuration, I'm going to keep the default values here, and those are all SSL true, cert file, and key file will all be the same, and I'm going to keep the default port of 7277. All right, so if we then go back over here and we'll look at, actually let's go over here and let's go ahead and start up Bitwarden. And as always, check the logs and make sure everything looks good. One thing you're going to need to do when you install Bitwarden for the first time is, if everything goes well, you'll have this temporary admin token password. You definitely need to take note of that. And I'm going to go ahead and throw that on a notepad. So get that out of the way over here and put it on Notepad. That way we can get back to our admin vault here, that way we can go back and admin this in just a second. So definitely make sure you keep track of that because you will need it. Check the logs and everything else looks good. A couple things to be aware of on this is that the add-on doesn't support Ingress. And if you're using Ingress with your other add-ons, you'll understand that. It basically means that you can't go to something like Nabucasa and go to this particular web UI for Bitwarden due to security limitations or technical limitations. And then some browsers like Chrome don't use or disallow the use of web crypto APIs for in insecure contexts. So what that means is you'll need to use SSL, and we're planning on using SSL, so that's not going to be an issue for this installation. All right, so everything else we will come back to later on. There's a lot of options here. You can read through all this, but I'm going to leave my stuff as default for now. All right, then we're going to go over to Let's Encrypt. And Let's Encrypt is installed on my server already as an add-on. And for the configuration, all I'm going to do is set the email, and I'm going to set any domains that I want Let's Encrypt to manage my certificate for. And that would be this one for in this particular case. And for the challenge, I'm going to leave it as HTTP and leaving DNS just like this. If you read the documentation, you can see that there's an HTTP challenge and a DNS challenge. HTTP basically allows Let's Encrypt to come back and verify your host. You have to have port 80 open on your firewall while you're doing the challenge. You can shut it down at for any other time, but you have to leave it open during the challenge, unless you're using DNS. If you're using the DNS challenge, you can go ahead and leave port 80 blocked, and then just use DNS. The DNS challenge is going to set a text value in your DNS entry so that Let's Encrypt can verify that you are the owner of the domain. And you can look down here at the very bottom of the documentation. It will tell you the supported DNS providers. I'm using Google for mine, for my DNS, but I don't want to go through and set that up right now. There's quite a bit of, it's not quite a bit, but you have to do some stuff like copy your credentials file over to the Google JSON file or into the share folder and do a bunch of other stuff like that. I'm going to keep it simple. At some point, I'll probably add this because it'll be fully automated. Right now, when you're doing HTTP challenge, you're going to have to open port 80 every time you want to run this challenge or your certificate is going to expire. So best to automate it if you can, and you can with a number of DNS providers. All right, so that's up and running. So we have Let's Encrypt and we have Bitwarden. So now what I want to do is go to the Bitwarden UI. That'll open up in a new window. And I am not going to create an account yet, but what I'm going to do is come up to the address bar and I'm going to type in /admin. And remember I talked about that token that you got in the log when you started Bitwarden. You're going to need that now. Let me go over to my notepad and grab that. Stick it in here. All right, so there's my token and my admin panel. Once you save on this admin panel, your token pretty much goes away out of the log, so you can't see it anymore. So make sure you save it before you make any changes here in saving them. So I'll just go through some basic settings real quick. General settings, this will be the domain of where you're going to put Bitwarden. And then let's see, the rest of this, we're going to allow new signups so that you can create a user account on the main page here in a minute. The rest of this stays the same. And then for advanced settings, we have no changes here. And for YubiKey settings, I want to use YubiKey. I have a couple of YubiKeys. And in order to get this client ID and secret key, you actually have to go to the YubiKey Get API Key. So you will sign up for an API key here, and I will do that. You have to have a UBI key for this to work. So then I will get a key here, get my API key, and I will take the client ID without the tab, and I will take the secret key and paste that in here. And then you also do not need to fill out the server unless you have your own YubiKey server. If you don't fill this out, it will automatically go to the YubiKey servers. All right, so there's that. I don't have any Duo settings. You can set up SMTP email if you would like. If I have a local server on my Synology NAS, which I'll set up later on. That would be the host, and then from address, username, password for your account, etc. The email is useful if Bitwarden needs to send you information such as somebody logged into your account or a new device connected or whatever, something like that. All right, no email 2FA settings. I'm not going to use that, but you can set this up as well. And that's it for the admin panel. So let's save that. And it says it's good. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to go back over to the main page. All right, from the main page now I'm going to create an account because I don't have one yet. I'm going to use demo@that.com, and then my name, and then my master password. This is where you'll choose one. Retype the master password. Hopefully they match, and they do. All right, good. So now what you'll do is you'll log in using your email and your master password. I wonder if I typed that wrong. Nope, I got it. All right, cool. So now I've logged in, and you will not see anything in here. If you do, that's a problem. But you basically have now set up your password vault, and you're ready to start using Bitwarden from this point forward. There are some settings you can set along in here. Let me see if there's anything of note. Oh, yes. So we did set up the two-step authentication, and they have options for, you can use an authenticator app, you know, like the Google Authenticator or the YubiKey Authenticator or any of your favorite two-factor authentication applications. You can use Yubico, Duo, and then you can also do email verification with your email address. So I'm going to set up if I can type the password right. Note to self, shorter passwords when you're doing a demo. All right, so what I can do here is I can set up my Yubico keys, and I can set up to 5 different keys. And depending on the type of key you have, you insert it, and then mine's a touch, so I'll touch it and it'll fill in the fields. So I could set a YubiKey 1 here, and it's filled it out for me. And then I can save it. And make sure my key supports NFC, which means I can use it on other devices as well, like my phone. All right, so I've saved the key, and that is that. Now you can see a green check mark here that I've done that. I am also going to set up, I'll do this later on, but you also should set up a secondary mode of authentication because if you think about it, this Bitwarden is going to house all of your authentication for all of your sites. You want to be able to get to it. So if for some reason you lose your YubiKeys or something else happens to those keys, you want to have a secondary mode of authentication. And so you can come over here to two-factor authentication, and you can scan the code here and add that as well. On my production device, I'm going to do that just to make sure that I have a secondary mode of getting connected. All right, so the rest of this stuff, not a lot. I mean, you could do things like lock out your web vault after a certain amount of time. That's your personal preference there. I'll leave it as 15 minutes. Language is default. You can disable website icons, enable gravatars. I'm not sure what the benefit of either one of those are. I guess if you click it, it'll tell you. Those are those icons that show up on the side of the domain or URL that you have, like Google would have its Google icon and so forth. And then domain rules. So they have an option, or they have it set up to you have custom or you have equivalent domains, which basically means that if you log in across multiple different website domains, you can mark the website as equivalent so that it thinks it's the same login. And they have a whole bunch of these already built out. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm going to, as I go through this and use this for a few weeks, I'm going to get a better understanding of how that works. Because I have multiple Google accounts, I don't know if this is going to try to put them all under one username, password, or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so that's it. If you want to add an item, you have a choice of login, card, identity, or secure notes. I'm just going to do a quick login, give it a name of Google. You can put things in folders if you like to organize things like that. Username is Google user. This is all fake, of course. Password, you can have it generate a password, or you can type one in. Let's just have it generate a random one, which happens to be blah, blah, blah. All this junk. And I'm looking to see where I can specify the password options, like how many special characters and how many total characters. I'll have to play around with that some more. Yeah, I don't see it anywhere. Authenticator key, I don't have that. I guess if you use an authenticator key with this site, you can put that in here as well. And then, of course, the actual name of the actual website that this applies to. And then using default match detection. Again, this is just basic installation on this video. I'm going to play around with some of these things and see how they work out. And if you want any notes, you can put them in here and then save it. And you'll see now, see how that custom icon shows up. That's Google's icon from this, from Bitwarden's vault of icons. All right, so now you have this as a place to store your passwords in a vault. But to make it really useful, what you need to do is you need to have something along the lines of a Chrome extension or Firefox extension or something like that. So Let me go with adding a Chrome extension just to show you how that works out. And for that, we'll go to More Tools, Extensions. And for whatever reason, it opened it in a different window. Let me bring it over here. All right, so I know I don't have it installed, so I'm going to open the Chrome Web Store. And I'm going to search for Bitwarden. Like that. Search. And then I'm going to add that to Chrome. Add extension, yep. It's going to read all my stuff and all that junk. We'll give it a second here and have it install it. All right, so Bitwarden has been added. All right, great. So I'm going to go back to my other window. I wonder if it's in the incognito window. We'll see if it shows up here. It does not. Let me see if it will let me put it in my incognito window. All right, we'll just play with it from here. Okay, so I need to pin it first, so I'll go find it in my list of extensions, click on pin, and now we have it stuck here. It's grayed out because we're not logged in. So let me go ahead and click on that so that we can log in. Before you log in though, since you're doing a self-hosted Bitwarden server, you need to click on settings and you need to set the self-hosted environment. So in my case, I'll put in my host name with the port number, and I think that's it. So let's save it. And if everything works right, when you log in, it'll have gone to the right place. So let me put in my email address and my master password. I typed it wrong. Let me start over. And because I enabled US or YubiKey on my account, I'm going to have to use my YubiKey to finish logging in. And remember me. Hopefully I did that fast enough. All right, so now what we have is we have the Google user password we created on the Vault, and it now shows up in the Bitwarden extension. So that's as simple as it is. I'm going to play around with it a little bit and help you or help understand the difference between what I'm using now, which is LastPass, and Bitwarden. I will say that one other thing I want to bring up here is the domain that I'm using is an external domain, but also it goes to an internal device when I'm on my local network. And how I do that is I use AdGuard, which is another add-on for Home Assistant. And with AdGuard, you're able to take and do some DNS rewrites using the DNS rewrite filter. And if I add a DNS rewrite, I can put the domain, so domain.domain.com, whatever your domain is, and I can put the IP address, so 172.161.104. So let's say that this is where my Bitwarden is as a public domain, and also I want to access it internally. I need to do some DNS rewriting. So I just do domain.domain.com, and whenever you try to go to that domain inside your network, as long as you're using AdGuard as your DNS server on your devices in your network, it will redirect you to the 104 address here, and it'll take you to the AdGuard server. As soon as you go outside of your network, assuming you have DNS set up correctly, and your firewall port is forwarded on your firewall to the server, it will come back to the Bitwarden server inside your network. So it's important to test access between your internally on your internal network as well as externally using the DNS. And that's something you need to be aware of. You can't put 172.1.6.1.104 in your your Bitwarden extension on your Chrome extension and then leave your network and try to get to that without having some sort of DNS resolution. So make sure you set up something like that if you need it. So firewall rules, by the way, you need to make sure you open port 7277 if that's the port you're using on your Bitwarden vault. Make sure you're forwarding that correctly. If there's so many firewalls and different things, I'm not going to go into that. I'm using a Unify USG firewall, and that allows me to push that out. So that's how I did it. So I think that's everything we need. So let me just run through it real quick. We installed Bitwarden. We installed Let's Encrypt. We put Bitwarden, the admin section. We made sure we specified our URL. Added some crypto or two-factor authentication using YubiKey. Then we configured Let's Encrypt, although I had it already set up. Did port forwarding on our firewall to bring outside in. We downloaded the Chrome extension. We set the local hosted URL in the extension instead of the public one, so that it comes to your server. And then we did testing, and everything worked. So that's a quick, simple install of Bitwarden. I highly recommend a password manager. Even if you're not using Bitwarden, use something. And I highly recommend that you do not use the same password on any one site, anywhere. And if you're going to do the recommended security practices, you're going to need somewhere to store these passwords. Oh, and one other thing to remember, since this is basically your logins for everything else, make sure that you have the ability to back this up somehow. So you can go to Tools, and you can go to an export vault. Remember though, the export is all unencrypted. So don't store this anywhere or send it anywhere if it's publicly available or whatever. If you can figure out a way to store it encrypted at rest in a backup location, do that. But if I were to lose my password manager now, I wouldn't have any idea how to get to most of my sites. I have too many of them. So make sure you back it up. Make sure you store the backup in a safe place so that no one gets your passwords. So with that, I think that pretty much covers it. I hope this was helpful to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a review after I play around with it for some time, seeing how it compares to LastPass, which I've been using for quite a while. Nothing wrong with LastPass, but this is kind of fun to play with, and I want to see how it shapes up and compares. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave me any comments down below if you have any. Hit the like button and that bell icon just so that you're notified when I make new videos. And we'll see you on the next one.